At some point in the process of coming back to yourself, something unexpected happens. You start to feel like you are doing something wrong. Not because you are hurting anyone, not because anything has gone wrong, but because the version of you that is starting to emerge, the one with clearer limits, more honest needs, a quieter but more genuine presence, doesn't fit the role that some of the people you love have come to depend on. And that gap between who you are becoming and who they needed you to remain can feel, surprisingly, like betrayal. This is about that feeling and why it is one of the most misunderstood parts of coming back to yourself. Because the hardest part isn't becoming someone new. It's wondering whether the people you love will still know how to love you when you do. Healing is often described as something you do for yourself. And that is true. But it doesn't capture the full complexity of what happens when you actually begin to do it. Because you do not heal in isolation. You heal inside relationships, inside family systems, inside friendships and partnerships and dynamics that have been functioning in a particular way, often for years, with you playing a particular role. And when you begin to change, when you start to inhabit yourself more fully, more honestly, with more attention to your own needs and less reflexive attention to everyone else's, the system notices. And the system does not always welcome the change. The people in your life did not fall in love with an idea of you. They fell in love with a specific version of you. The version that was available, the version that showed up consistently, reliably, in ways that worked for them. The one who didn't ask for too much. The one who absorbed difficulty without complaint. The one who was always there, always steady, always the person who could be counted on to make things easier. And over time, they built their relationship with you around that version, their expectations, their habits, their sense of what you are to them, and what they can rely on you for. None of this is malicious. Most of it is not even conscious. It is simply what happens inside long relationships. Patterns form, roles solidify, and eventually, everyone begins operating inside a system that nobody consciously designed, but everyone quietly adapted to. And when you begin to change, when you start needing different things, responding differently, showing up in ways that no longer fit the role the system assigned you, the people who built their world around the old version of you will feel it. The guilt arrives because part of you understands this. Part of you knows that becoming more yourself will cost some people something they genuinely valued. The reliable overgiver, the one who never said no, the one who could always be counted on to put everyone else's needs before their own. And the guilt says, you are taking something from them. You are changing the deal. You are becoming someone they didn't sign up for. And there is something true in that. When you stop overgiving, the people who relied on your overgiving receive less. When you begin saying no, the people who benefited from your inability to say no experience that loss. When you begin taking up a little more space, the people who were comfortable with how little space you occupied notice the difference. The guilt is not irrational. It is responding to something real. But what the guilt consistently misses, what it almost never takes into account, is what the old version was costing you. Underneath the guilt, often quieter, often harder to admit, is a fear. If I change, will they still want me? Not the changed version, not the version with healthier limits, with needs, with a more honest presence. But me, the actual person. Because for someone who has spent years making themselves valuable through what they provide, through being useful, easy, available, the one who never asks for too much, the question of whether they would still be wanted without all of that is genuinely terrifying. What if the relationship was never with me? What if it was always with what I did for them? What if, when I stop doing it, they simply find someone else who will? That fear is not paranoia. For some people, in some relationships, it reflects something real. Some relationships were primarily transactional. Some people were primarily drawn to the function you served. And when the function changes, the relationship changes too. That is painful. But it is also information. Here is what is also true. Not every relationship is primarily transactional. Not every person in your life was primarily drawn to what you provided. Some of them, the ones who have been there through the versions of you that weren't useful, weren't easy, weren't at your best. Some of them are there for you, not for the function, for the person. And those relationships, the genuine ones, are capable of something the transactional ones are not. They are capable of growing with you, of adjusting to a version of you that needs different things, shows up differently, takes up more space. Not without difficulty, not without an adjustment period, not without some discomfort for everyone involved, but capable. And one of the quiet gifts of healing is that it slowly reveals which relationships were built around the role and which ones were built around you. Becoming more yourself is not betrayal. It can feel like it. It can even look like it to people who preferred the more accommodating version of you. But betrayal implies breaking a promise. And you never promised to remain small. You never agreed to make yourself permanently available at the cost of yourself. You never signed up to play a role that required you to abandon your own needs indefinitely. You simply did those things for a long time without complaint because the pattern was familiar. The habit was strong, and for a while, the cost felt manageable. Until it didn't. And the moment you finally noticed what it was costing you, the moment you wanted something different, the moment you began existing inside your relationships with a little more of yourself present, that wasn't betrayal. That was the beginning of something honest. If the process of coming back to yourself has brought guilt, if changing feels like letting people down, like taking something from them, like becoming someone they never asked for, I want to offer you this. The people who truly love you, the ones who are there for you, rather than for what you provide, are more capable of adjusting than your guilt would have you believe. They may need time. They may need the change to be gradual. They may even need to grieve the version of you they had come to rely on. But they are capable. And the relationship that cannot survive you becoming more fully yourself. Those relationships were already telling you something about what they were built on. You are not responsible for protecting people from the experience of knowing you more completely. You are allowed to become more of who you are, even if it changes things, even if it costs something, even if the people who loved the smaller version of you need time to find their way to the larger one. You were never meant to stay small so that others could stay comfortable. Maybe becoming more yourself was never the betrayal. Maybe disappearing was. But becoming more yourself creates another question. If healing isn't the betrayal, why do the people who depended on the old version of you sometimes resist the new one? That's where our next conversation begins.